Today I was going to talk with everybody about inner guidance. My last Facebook Live, I talked about inner guidance, how to trust it. And today I wanted to talk more about not only how to trust it, but how to recognize your inner guidance and how to know and tap into that inner guidance. I've been working as a professional intuitive since 2004, and one of the common things I see with people is they really doubt their guidance. And the other thing is they're not always sure how to trust it. So one of the things I wanted to tell you and to talk with you about is that we all innately have inner guidance. Okay? Sometimes we could call this intuition, we could call it our sixth sense, but we all have this inner guidance, or what I like to call a higher guidance that we have inside of us. One of the things that I wanted to teach you about was not only how to tap into it, but exactly what is inner guidance. There's a kind of mind chatter. There's this kind of self-doubt. That's not our inner guidance. The inner guidance I'm talking about is the kind of guidance that's going to be uplifting, that's going to guide you to your next steps, that's going to teach you what to do to feel more calm, to feel more centered, to feel more balanced, to do what you love to do. That's the kind of inner guidance that I'm talking about. One of the things that I wanted to also talk about was about how to get your energy to a place where you are accessing that inner guidance from a place of the most, I want to say, high vibration or optimal kind of place that you can access it. And one of the things that really gets in the way of trusting our inner guidance is our own self-doubt. I was sitting in meditation before this live, and I was asking how I could help you understand your guidance. And one of the things I was given by my guides was an image of a garden. And when you go to have a garden and you have that freshly tilled soil, it's fresh, it's new, you've planted the seeds, the plants are starting to sprout up. But if we don't weed that garden and we don't tend to that garden, pretty soon those plants get intermingled with the weeds, and we can't really tell what are the weeds and what are the plants that we've grown. So when we do things like have a lot of doubt or self-criticism, that's like those weeds in the garden that get intermingled, and it gets hard to tell what's our guidance. Another common thing I see is that we're so busy. A lot of us are so busy. Our days are filled with jobs, with obligations to other people, with activities, running errands. There's so much that we're all jam-packed in our days that it's hard to really get that clear state where our mind is more clear, more balanced, so that we can really trust that guidance. So another thing that helps us, and I mentioned this before, to help access that inner guidance is to take quiet time. And the more often you can take quiet time, especially if you can do it on a more regular basis, it's like that freshly tilled soil. It's that clear mind that helps you be able to discern what are my doubts, what are my fears, and what's my actual guidance. Okay. Another thing that I see with people is they are getting guidance. It's just they're not sure that it's guidance because they think it's wishful thinking. So another thing I wanted to talk to you about is how your inner guidance actively works with your imagination. I learned many years ago from one of my teachers that our soul actively works with our imagination and our heart. And so a lot of times when I do readings for people, they'll be like, oh, I thought that was wishful thinking. I thought I was making it up. I thought it was my imagination. Well, it is your imagination, but it's not necessarily wishful thinking in terms of like pie in the sky dreaming, okay? If you're getting guidance, for instance, that you want to perhaps work for yourself, that's something that I see really commonly in the readings I do with people. You could say, oh, that's just wishful thinking, but really it's coming from your own soul and your heart that you have something inside of you. You have some gifts and talents that you want to share with other people, and you could do that best, perhaps through working for yourself, okay? So wishful thinking would be, oh, I'd love to have my own business. I'd love to make all this money, but I don't know if I really trust it enough, so I'm going to just keep daydreaming about it, but I'm never going to take action on it. That's what I would call more wishful thinking. That's when our guidance stays in the realm of is sort of a dream out here, but we don't really ever take action on it. Our guidance will tell us or give us that feeling of, I'd love to work for myself. Then our guidance will be guiding us to like take those small steps to actually make that happen in the real world, in the physical world. So to use myself as an example, I'm using working for myself because I've shared this before in some of the other lives. For years in my 20s, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I took a bunch of career tests. I took personality tests. I met with 2 different career counselors. I read, hey, hi Liz, how are you? Thanks for joining us. So, I did all sorts of stuff. I read all sorts of career books. I could not figure out what I wanted to do. I even tried different things. I tried, based on my personality type from Myers-Briggs, I tried working in libraries. I tried freelance writing. I tried working with children. I tried all sorts of different things. But it was really only when I started to really tap into my inner guidance that I was starting to show the steps. And that's when I really started getting the idea that working for myself would actually be a better fit for me. And it first came in, yes, like a daydream, or some people might call wishful thinking, imagination, Liz. It did come in like that. And it was this thought that I had done all of this, behind the scenes tests, career counselors, is that I could never find the job that seemed to be the right fit. And I had this thought drop in of what you're looking for, you're not going to find. It's going to be something that you need to create. And at that time, I thought, well, that's really interesting. How the heck am I going to do that? So I kept following my guidance, not so much at that time to become self-employed, but kept following my guidance to work on myself. I did therapy. I worked with different healers. I read a lot about personal development. I started meditating. So I really began understanding who I was in this world. I worked on things like my boundaries, my confidence, all those kinds of things. So that was foundational. Then as I started to do that, I started getting more interested in things like intuition, understanding spirit, understanding spiritual healing, eventually going and getting my master's in psychology. As I was taking those steps, step by step by step, then my mind began to see, and my heart too, of how I could begin to put these pieces together into an actual career. But the thought dropping in my head of maybe what you're looking for isn't something that you're going to actually go be able to apply for in terms of an actual job. It's something that you need to create. That thought dropped in actually several years before I actually started to do it. But it was sort of always in the back of my mind, and that thought repeated itself. So that's another thing with guidance. Guidance will often repeat itself if it's connected to our true calling, our purpose, whatever you want to call it. That thought or that feeling won't go away. And I've seen that a lot when I do, hey, Barbara, good to see you. Yes, exactly, like a vision behind your eyes. And that's one of the things I want to talk about next too, is how does that come in specifically for you? So, like I said, that thought dropped in to my mind, and I just kept getting that thought recurring to me over the years of what I was looking for wasn't necessarily something that I could go and apply for, put a job application in. It might be something that I need to create. Okay. For me personally, one of the biggest ahas was I started at this time in my late 20s. I was doing a lot of, like I said, personal development. I've done some therapy on, worked with therapists, and I was starting to read more at this time more about intuition, near-death experiences people had, what I would call not just the books about the afterlife, but how to use our intuitive abilities, our inner guidance, higher guidance to help us in our life in the here and now. And maybe some of you have read this book. Sonia Choquette wrote a book, which is an excellent book. I very, very much recommend it, called The Psychic Pathway. And at that time, I read that book, and it was like this little ping, this little feeling inside of me went, oh, I think I'd like to do what she's doing. But at the time, I didn't think, oh, I want to do psychic readings or want to be a psychic. What really drew me to her book was how she was helping people beyond the readings and the teaching and the guidance and the teaching that she was doing. And that's sort of the aha moment of, maybe I'd like to do that. And again, at that time, I had no clue how to do that. I thought at that time, well, maybe that is wishful thinking. But I kept following my intuition or my guidance to begin to read the next book or take the next class or the next workshop. Hey, Colleen, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. So that's how guidance come in. At first, it may come in, you may get a feeling, a thought, it seems like a daydream. And it might seem like kind of big, or you don't really know all the details yet. That's okay, because sometimes spirit is, or your own soul, I'll say, is bringing to you kind of the bigger vision or the bigger dream. And then the next thing is your guidance will guide you to the next steps to take. And the next steps are small steps. You're not going to be asked in the beginning, especially, to necessarily, metaphorically jump off a cliff, leave everything behind, everything that you knew, and it's just like you have to take this huge risk and spend all this money. Sometimes people have stories like that, but I think for most of us, they're gradual steps, gradual shifts to get us to that vision, that dream, that goal that we're hoping to get to. It's small, incremental steps. And I'm actually reading this really great book right now called Stick With It, that's written by a man who is a researcher, and he's done research in psychology, done a lot of research. And the book is How Do People Actually Stick to Their Dreams and Their Goals? And it's all about small steps. And he's done a lot of research with control groups and other groups where it shows that we're more likely to actually reach our dreams and reach our visions through small steps. So most of the time, our inner guidance is going to guide us to take, like I said, small incremental steps. And we're not going to be given step 10 before we take like step 1, 2, and 3. So at that time, I began to get this feeling of like, ooh, maybe I'd like to be a spiritual counselor or a guide in some kind of way. I had no clue how to do that. But my first step was to go into the psychology program. And then I began to take classes in hypnotherapy. I got certified in that and life coaching and on, right? But that was sort of the first aha or feeling inside of me of like, this might be some kind of career. I have no idea if this is a career, but that's how I first got that feeling. And then I began to take those steps, okay? I'm just looking at my notes here because I was writing notes before this live of things that I wanted to bring up. Here's another thing I want to bring up, because a lot of times I see too when I've been coaching people, when I've done readings with people, is letting go of other people's expectations, letting go of your own expectations and emotional attachments. So a lot of times I see, and I've seen this in myself, I see it in people that I've worked with, is you've got other people's programming going on inside of here, okay? Or you've got your own expectations, and this isn't your soul. This is your mind, your ego expectations, or other people's expectations that they've placed on you. So a lot of the inner work that we have to do is to let that go. To let go, maybe it's the parents, the teachers, the adults that have criticized you or said you should do this or you're not good at that, or your own mind that's telling you, well, aren't you a dreamer? A lot of it is letting that go. And that's why taking that quiet time where you can do something that gets you centered. Maybe that's sitting meditation. Maybe that's exercise. Maybe that's painting, knitting, cooking, baking, going for walking with your dog. It really doesn't matter. Whatever that can let go of other people's voices in your head, including the own voice that you have in your head that wants to self-doubt. Because your guidance, you're going to be able to hear it more clearly, just like I gave that metaphor before earlier in this live of that freshly tilled soil when we plant the garden. When it's freshly tilled and the seeds are beginning to sprout, that's like the clear mind. And the doubts and other people's voices, those are the weeds. And like I said before, when those two things get mixed up, it's really hard to tell what our guidance is. So that's why getting that mind into a clearer state is going to help you discern what your true guidance is. Okay? The other thing we want to let go is the emotional attachments we have inside of ourselves. We want to get to a place where we can be neutral. It doesn't mean that we don't want that thing to happen or whatever that dream or goal that we have, but we don't want to become so attached to it and that we're not open to higher guidance, that we're not open to letting spirit or divine guidance come in. Because sometimes we have a dream, but then we think, well, this is how it needs to be, or I need to be with this person, or I need this much money, or I need to look this way or be this way. That's the ego coming in. Those are our emotional attachments. And that's why for me and for a lot of people in the beginning, I maybe had sort of this fuzzy feeling of, ooh, I'd like to do some kind of spiritual guidance work with people. I don't know how, but for me, foundationally, I had to get to know myself. I had to do some inner healing work on myself. I had to work on my confidence. I had to work on my self-belief. And I had to really get a lot of other old ideas of who I was out, clear that out, okay? And one of my big challenges that I've had through my life, as an adult especially, has been giving away my time and energy to people or to activities that weren't really guiding me toward my purpose. Sometimes it was done as a distraction. Sometimes it was done out of being codependent. Sometimes it was done out of not valuing myself. So I don't know if any of you've ever made this, the mind ticking, Clay, that's true. I have had a history in my past of devaluing my worth, which I think it's tied to my work. So that comes in the form of giving too many free sessions to people, of discounting my rates, of, feeling sorry for someone, thinking that I need to discount my rate, only to find out later they actually did have the money to pay that rate. Those are some examples, okay, of where I personally have devalued my worth, and I've kind of gotten myself off track. Now, that wasn't my inner guidance. And that was my own stuff, right, getting in the way. And that's the mind chatter, the mind stuff, okay? So for me, mindset, working on all of that, really is something that I still do. I do it every day, really. I think about it. I have that kind of foundational practice of self-care, of meditation, of exercise, of journaling, of staying in a vibration as much as I can of self-belief and positivity. Because I think a lot of this is real for a lot of us, especially. We're very sensitive. We're very permeable, right? We're very empathic. And so other people's energy, very easily we absorb other people's energies and expectations, and then it starts to cloud our guidance. And we want to learn how to stay really grounded and centered in who we are, because a lot of us are very kind, empathic people, and then we lose sight of ourselves. We lose sight of our true guidance. So, early on when I was in therapy, one of my therapists, and some of you have maybe heard this analogy of, like, say someone's down in a hole in the ground and they need help out. You can't help them by going down in the hole with them. You're now both stuck there. It's like codependence. What's really going to help is if you stay above ground, you reach down and give them a hand up. And that's something I've had to learn in my life is, am I really helping, or am I being codependent? Am I helping, or am I losing who I am in the situation because I'm not valuing myself enough? So that's just a really important piece I wanted to mention about inner guidance. It's going to be so much easier to trust ourselves and trust our guidance if we're not giving away ourselves to someone else and sacrificing ourselves to the point that we don't even know what's important to us anymore. So it's really important to trust your feelings, to trust your body, to trust. That is probably the number one things I would say about how to trust your guidance, is pay attention to your body and your physical sensations. Okay. I'm looking here at my notes too. Here's another big piece about guidance, okay? And it was a big one that I had to get over in the beginning, is sometimes a lot of us that are into this healing spiritual work, we have to forge our own path. And that's the scariest piece of it. So for me, realizing that I wanted to do something that didn't exist out there in the world, I couldn't go to the employment office or some kind of career center and find that job. Then the next thought, of course, I had was, I guess I have to create this myself. And then the next thought I had was, well, that's pretty damn scary, because how the heck am I going to do that? And so that's one of the biggest hurdles I think a lot of us have to get over, is the thing that we want to do might require us to be confident, have a certain amount of courage, take a certain leap, because it's not necessarily already out there. But that's okay, because when you tap into your true guidance, when you learn to tap into your spirit and your soul, you will begin to trust and see that you're being guided and supported to do that, even if you have to forge your own path. A lot of times in my readings, I've said to people, there's this quotation I found years ago where I can't remember the author of this quotation right now, but basically, traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking. And so as we walk this path, as we find the courage to take those small steps, then the path that we're looking for outside of ourselves, we begin to see, because it actually comes from inside of ourselves. That's why, it's called inner guidance. Okay, it comes from inside of ourselves. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about you with is, how does that guidance come in? Let's break it down a little bit more. And one of the ways that we can talk about inner guidance, first of all, is paying attention to your body as the primary vehicle and way that guidance is going to come in, okay? So some of you have heard about things called clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, and clairsentience, okay? Sometimes they're called the 4 clairs. What really helped me in the beginning understand intuition, inner guidance, sixth sense, all of that, was to understand those 4 clairs. Now, clair is just clear, okay? That's the meaning of clair. And so I'm going to break it down. We're going to go through each of these clairs, because that really helped me understand how I uniquely was getting guidance. So all of you have been getting guidance your whole life, but sometimes we need to recognize when and how we uniquely get guidance. So some of you may be more predominantly one of these than the other. Some of you may be a combination of them. Okay, so clairaudience is clear hearing. And again, we're talking about our inner senses, our 6 senses. Clairvoyance is clear seeing. And so somebody had said earlier, like behind your eyes or something like that. I think it was Barbara had mentioned something like that. Yeah, a vision behind your eyes. That's clairvoyance. That's inner seeing. Now, some people may be objectively clairvoyant, or they see things objectively. That's where some mediums will see like spirits outside of themselves, or you might see, orbs or lights, okay? But mostly we're talking about clairvoyance that comes in your mind's eye. And then clairsentience is clear feeling. That's where you feel something inwardly, through your heart, through your feelings, your emotions, through your body, physical sensations. And the last one is called claircognizance. And claircognizance is clear knowing. That's where like that thought that dropped into my head of, ooh, I might like to do that. Or sometimes you might get a sudden thought in your mind, you just know something about someone. That's claircognizance. So let's go a little bit more slowly over each of these, okay? I had no idea I had any of these abilities. I had no idea about any of this. When I started learning it, then I was actively able to use it in my life. And then I was actively able to start using it in my work with people in the readings, the coaching, and the teaching I do. So let's talk about clairvoyance. Okay, clairvoyance is something that you're going to see in your mind's eye or your inner imagination or your inner pictures or movies. So it's like, yes, you maybe, people talk about the sixth chakra, the pineal gland, all that. We don't need to get into the technicalities of that. The most important thing for you to know is that clairvoyance is a type of inner seeing. So let's say you were daydreaming or you're looking out the window and you get a sudden flash or picture in your mind. That's clairvoyance, okay? So when I do readings, I'll get a sudden, I did a reading this morning with someone and his grandmother came in and I saw a quick flash of an orchard. And I asked him, would you understand this with your grandmother and orchard? He said yes. But the way it happens is it's like I see it like a quick flash inside of my mind's eye. Now, in the beginning, some of you, it may be easier to recognize that if your eyes are closed, okay? And some of you, oh, hey, Donna, I'm glad that you can join us. Some of you will get to the point where you can just sort of stare off into space or kind of look at a certain point and you'll be able to recognize your clairvoyance. That's the place that I began to get because I trained enough in intuition and psychic development, is that I was able to access, and I'm able to access my clairvoyance by keeping my eyes open. Now, sometimes I will close my eyes, but a lot of times when I do readings with people, I'll kind of stare off out the window or look down because I'm accessing that inner vision, okay? Now, what I want to encourage you to do is to pay attention to that inner vision. A lot of times, to me, it reminds me when I was a kid in grade school and, sometimes the teacher's reading or you're bored or whatever, you're kind of daydreaming and you kind of get those pictures or little movies in your mind. That's clairvoyance. And I want you to begin to really pay attention to those inner senses because that is how your soul, how your guides, how your teachers, how your loved ones, how spirit, big S spirit is trying to communicate with you, is through these inner senses. So one of the best ways that you can develop these inner senses is to turn off, the TV, get off the computer, and spend some quiet time. Like I said, I'm going to say it like it's a broken record, but spend quiet time. I keep looking out this way because I'm looking out the window. My computer's in front of my window, but looking out, spending time in nature, anything that you can do to get into that right brain. So that's going to be different for some of you. Some of you, like I said, maybe you are in that right brain when you're cooking. Maybe you love spending time with your animals. Maybe some of you like to go for a walk. It's unique to you, but whatever you can do to kind of quiet that mind, okay? Another way that you can do this, I've seen this some mediums on TV. If any of you have ever seen, what is he called, the Hollywood medium or something, Tyler Henry on TV, where he begins to scribble. What he's doing is he's getting out of his mind and he's focusing inwardly on his inner senses. So that's why if you like to do art, if you like to work with clay, if you like to paint, if you just were to do something creative or fun, joyful, that's going to help you get more in touch with that right brain and those inner senses, okay? Anyone that's very interested in color, too, that's another way to access that clairvoyance, is to pay attention to color. And you could even ask your inner guidance. You can ask your guides, begin to teach me through color. And notice what colors you're attracted to, whether it's colors that you dress in, it's colors that you may have in your home. Maybe it's pictures you like to put on the wall. Maybe it's you want to redecorate something. Those colors have a symbolic meaning to you. Go look that up and see what that means. That's a form of clairvoyance, is being drawn to things visually, okay? So let's talk again about another one of the clairs. Let's talk about clairaudience. Now, some of you may think, I don't even know if I'm clairaudient. Now, in the beginning, I didn't think I was either. And another intuitive medium at the time told me that my clairaudience would open up. And it did. Now, I want you to realize, I really want you to hear this. You don't have to be a medium. You don't need to be a professional intuitive. You don't need to be a psychic. You have these gifts. Trust me, you do. It's just a matter of cultivating and practicing being with yourself and being quiet with yourself and knowing yourself. And then you'll begin to recognize that you have these gifts. So again, clairaudience is clear hearing. Now, some of you may objectively sometimes hear things outside of yourself, but more often it's an inner voice. It's your inner thoughts. That's a form of clairaudience. I've just developed it to a point, because I do it professionally, where I can hear the loved ones, inside hearing, or I can hear guides inside. Now, I want you to know you can hear this too, but it's going to start first with you trusting and hearing your own inner voice. Okay? So what does that look like? Let's break it down. In the beginning, my clairaudience really was hearing words inside of my own head that would say things like, what about this book? What about reading this book? What about learning about energy? I talked before about energy in the last live, and I got this thought in my head to start learning about subtle energy. And then, I'm not kidding you, within maybe a week or two, I got this postcard in the mail about Carolyn Mace doing this workshop on subtle energy. And I was like, whoa. And I didn't even know who this woman was at the time. I was like, who is this? This is a lot of four-day workshop. But that's how it was working in the beginning, was these thoughts in my head. And I ended up signing up for a workshop. It was phenomenal. I went on to read some of her books, and I didn't even know until I started investigating who this woman was, is that she's a medical intuitive. And that intuition is a big piece of what she teaches in her work. So trust those inner thoughts that come to you in terms of clairaudience. Some of you may be thinking, am I really hearing, the voice of my grandmother? My grandmother's been, dead for 20 years. I want you to trust that. Okay? Would my grandmother encourage me to do something that's going to make me feel fearful and afraid, or is my grandmother, who loved me dearly, going to encourage me to do something that's going to help me feel better, that's going to help encourage me? Okay, so if you feel like you're hearing the voice of a loved one, and that voice is telling you to do something that feels encouraging, that feels helpful, supportive, then trust that. Okay, know that your loved ones are going to come through to you in your own mind, like telepathically, and encourage you with thoughts to do things that will help you feel better or help encourage you in your life. Yes, trust it. It's your loved one. Okay. What happens is you begin to listen to yourself more, and you begin to listen to your intuition and your own soul more. You're raising your frequency and your vibration, because you're in the frequency and the vibration of trust. Just feel that for a moment. Like, I'm not even going to say anything. Just feel the silence of that. You know that when you go in and you really begin to trust yourself, there's this calmness that comes over you. That is directly linking you to your own spirit and to higher guidance. Okay? And when you practice that more consistently, it becomes easier to trust your guidance. And as you raise your frequency and your vibration, as you spend more time with yourself, as you trust yourself more, then it becomes easier to hear the voice of the loved ones, to hear the voice of your guides, to hear the voice of your own soul. So when you are loving to yourself, when you're kind to yourself and you take time for yourself, that's raising your energy, that's raising your vibration. When you believe in yourself, same thing. And when you raise your energy and your vibration, you're more able to hear the voice of spirit, because the frequency of spirit is a high frequency. It's a high vibration. And you have that high vibration as well inside of you. We all do. It's just it gets clouded over by our doubts and our fears and all the old tapes we play in our head. Okay? So in the beginning, clairaudience may come to you with your own thoughts. And then for those of you that develop it more, and some of you may already be at that point, yes, you may be hearing your guides. You may be hearing loved ones. Your guides have been with you your whole life. So guaranteed some of those thoughts that you're hearing are your guides, helping you, encouraging you, supporting you. Okay? Let's talk about another one. Let's talk about clairsentience. Now, a lot of people, if you are empathic, if you're kind, you're sensitive, I'm going to guarantee you have clairsentience. Okay? People that are naturally feeling types, that's clairsentience. When you're loving a child, when you love your animals, when you love yourself, when you're being kind to someone, you're tapping into your natural clairsentience, because that's your feeling. What is the number one thing I see that gets in the way of people trusting their clairsentience? Self-doubt, self-criticism, holding yourself back, listening to somebody else instead of yourself. Those are some of the top ways that we get in the way of our own clairsentience. Clairsentience is, I really feel it in my solar plexus area, and I feel it in my heart. Those are the two places I feel it. I'm going to encourage you to notice, where do you feel your clairsentience? Commonly, people get goosebumps. Maybe you get a warm feeling in your heart. Maybe you get an uncomfortable feeling in your gut. That's a form of clairsentience too. Whoa, I'm not even paying attention to the comments. Sorry, guys. Yes, calmness. I'll try to answer some of the comments later. Right now, I just want to keep going with this, but thank you for the comments. So I will look at those later. Pay attention to where you feel it. Maybe you feel it in your gut, Maybe you get an uncomfortable feeling. Maybe you get this lightness in your heart. Like, that's one way I'll feel clairsentient. So I'll get a lightness in my heart. Have any of you, and I know you are this too, but maybe some of you have been around people that just all of a sudden, this light, wonderful, beautiful feeling comes over you. And you're like, oh my gosh, this person is really kind and good-hearted, and I just feel like I can trust this person. That's a form of clairsentience. When I was a child, going back to grade school, I would sometimes, especially if it was really quiet, maybe the teacher would be reading to me, or to us as a class, I'd have this like amazing light feeling come over me. And I just would feel like I was almost kind of not really, but I almost felt like I was kind of floating, and like it was just like a warm hug, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's this feeling? I believe that's when spirit is with us. I really feel that now. I didn't know it as a kid, but I was like, what is that feeling? And there have been times in my life as an adult where I've been around people like that, and I'm just like, ooh, maybe you've had that feeling. You're like, I can really trust this person. I don't even know this person, but I can trust this person. You know what you're feeling? You're feeling their energy. You're feeling their vibration. And because you're empathic and you're kind and sensitive, you can feel their kindness and sensitivity too. That's a form of clairsentience. Let's look at the opposite of that. Some of us, especially women, we've been around some people. Some of them have maybe been men, doesn't have to be a man, where we get the opposite feeling. We're like, ooh, I don't even know this person, but I need to get away from this person. I feel fear, or I feel distrust. That's clairsentience too. It's your inner guidance warning you, this isn't a good person to be around. And it's really important to pay attention to your body's signals and not to what people are saying. Because I think we've all been in situations where people will say one thing, but our bodies are telling us something else. Like what they say sounds really great, really good, but inwardly you're like, I don't think so. Pay attention to that. That's your clairsentience. That is your inner sense, your inner guidance, giving you information about that person. And you maybe can't logically explain it. You can't, there's no proof, but you can feel it. Your intuition, your instincts, that's your clairsentience. And I think especially when we're young, when we're children, we're all very naturally clairsentient. I feel children are very naturally clairsentient, And that's where we want to get back to that state, into trusting ourselves. Because a lot of times we do trust that when we're young, but then things get layered on us. We get punished, we get criticized, we get made fun of, or all sorts of things happen to us, and we begin to doubt our clairsentience. What I've seen sadly happen with a lot of clients that I've been able to work with more deeply in the coaching is they begin to doubt because of experiences or traumas or things they've had in their childhood, where they've had harmful or negative experiences happen, where they naturally trusted themselves, but over the years they began to doubt and mistrust their guidance because someone else was laying their agenda on them and telling them what to think and to feel and believe, because that's what they had to do sometimes to survive or to get along or to make peace. But what we want to do as adults is we want to get back to that place where we really know and trust who we are, so that we can really begin to really know and sense what our body is telling us, because our body does not lie to us, right? I think all had those experiences where sometimes we have to break down. I've had those experiences too, where our body may begin to get ill or sick because it's telling us a message, something that we're doing in our lives isn't working. And we have to take a moment and we have to take some time and to heal and to really get in touch with ourselves. Okay, and I really think a lot of times that's where the dark night of the soul is, that some of you may have had those, I've had some, where it's a breakdown so that we can go inward, so we can get in touch with who we are and we can pay attention to our guidance. But sometimes we have to have these things happen to get our attention, to get us to pay attention to what's really important to us, okay? So that's clairsentient. Yes, Liz, you've always been a good judge of character. Being a good judge of a character is a form of clairsentience, and it's really important to trust that. So the last thing I want to talk about is claircognizance. Now, again, I believe we all have claircognizance. Some of us may have that more than others. Claircognizance is like that download. It's a drop in, it's a thought. So sometimes people that might be more in their heads or a little bit more mentally inclined might be more predominantly claircognizant. But claircognizance will come in as a sudden knowing and a sudden download or something like that, where you don't necessarily have a trail of thoughts right before that, but it comes in and you just know I need to do this. I need to call this person. I need to not take this job because something is telling me that job isn't right. And you just get this sudden thought in your head. That's a form of claircognizance. Sometimes I think it's not always easy to tell the difference between the claircognizance and the clairaudience, because they can both be a form of thoughts. I'm going to tell you, I don't really think it matters. I really don't, because I think what matters is what you sense, what you trust, what you know. It really doesn't matter whether it's clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, claircognizance. Guidance is guidance, and that's the most important thing to know. And the only reason to know the different types is to know, hey, maybe I can become more clairaudient, or maybe I am getting clairvoyance, I'm not aware of it. I think that's one reason to break it down and kind of define each of them. But a lot of times when I'm doing readings or I'm even getting guidance for myself, I think they intermingle. I think we get both. And it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you know that you're getting this guidance and that you can trust it, okay? Yeah, Liz says, I've noticed it comes from various places depending on each issue. Completely. I have that too in my readings. It will depend. I notice too, it depends on spirits. Like when I'm doing mediumship, and that's something my mentor has taught me, is that certain spirits might communicate with me more clairvoyantly. I might get more pictures. Some loved ones were very much more emotional and feeling people, so I will clairsentiently feel more emotion with those loved ones. Some loved ones, I've seen this more sometimes with male spirits, like fathers, grandfathers. Men sometimes are a little bit more, in their heads or mentally oriented, and so sometimes I will get more of a download of a thought, or it will feel less emotional. So that's how, for instance, it works in mediumship, but it works also the same here. It doesn't have to be mediumship. It can just be very, like Liz said, very dependent on the situation. It's just, the number one thing is just to begin to pay attention. So that's why I keep a lot of journals. I keep a dream journal. I write down dreams that I've had most of the nights I do. I write my dreams down. And you can see in your dreams, you might be very visual in your dreams. You might be very clairsentient. You might feel certain things in your dreams. Maybe you see color, maybe you don't see color. The more you begin to pay attention to those inner senses in your life, you'll begin to be able to see how you get your guidance, how you are getting higher guidance and information. Okay, so Liz has a question. What would it be when you physically feel what another physically feels? That's a form of clairsentience. That's a form of empathic ability. When you're physically feeling what someone else feels. So I feel it, I'm sure a lot of you do. I feel it both in my daily life, okay? And because I do this as work, I also will feel it in my readings. So when I do readings, I can feel emotion from spirit. I can feel emotion from the client. So that's a form of clairsentience. So let's talk about everyday life. So I'll give you an example from my life. Normally when I work out at this little gym in a rec center. And normally when I go, it's not very crowded. Maybe there's 4 or 5 people at most in the gym with me because it's a really tiny gym. I happened to go at like a really busy time, I guess, yesterday, and it was like every treadmill, every elliptical, everything was flooded with people. And I began to feel out of the blue, I was like, oh, I feel really overwhelmed. Well, I realized I was beginning to feel all the energy, possibly emotions, whatever, of probably everybody in that gym. So I began to use what I taught in some of these other lives. I began to kind of just bring my energy field or my aura just in my mind and just kind of brought it in a little bit more, sent out light to the people in the gym, and just kind of was very mindful of centering myself in my own energy. Because some of you may be like me, when I go into crowded places, crowded stores, when I'm around too many people, I'll start to feel unsettled. You might begin to feel anxious, and you weren't feeling anxious before, or nervous or irritable, or because your energy field is beginning to blend with the energy field of people around you, and the more people around you, the more of energies there are to feel. So yes, that's a form of clairsentience. When you feel that and you don't necessarily want to feel someone else's feelings or emotions, here's some really quick things that you can do. I'll repeat some of them that I've talked about before, but I think it's worth repeating them. Take some deep breaths. You can do that very subtly. I just took a deep breath. So I often will use deep breaths, doing it subtly if I'm around other people. That's one way to get someone else's energy out of you. Bringing your energy field in, calling light to your energy field or your aura, calling light to you. Okay? Filling your heart up, asking your guides, asking God, asking your higher self to send you light, to send you love into your heart. Okay, where's that light coming from? That light's coming from source. It's coming from God. It's coming from the divine. It's coming from spirit. Okay, it's higher light. Call that to you. You can imagine it like a shower of light cleansing your energy field, your aura. You can imagine it filling each cell of your body. Light, love. Okay, those are some ways to clear your energy field of other people. What happens, I want to give another example of that clairsentience, because I think a lot of you are very clairsentient. What happens when you're feeling the energy of somebody? Oh, here's another question. Yes, Donna, sometimes you have to run away. You really do sometimes. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to get out of that environment, that situation. In my situation yesterday at the gym, I really wanted to work out. And so I used some of the tools and techniques that I've known over the years so that I could begin to work out at the gym and not feel so overwhelmed. And it worked. It worked. You can bring your aura in, like I said. Sometimes you just can't be around certain people. That's true. Here's another example of clairsentience, and some of you may have had this experience. You begin to think of someone that you know, and you begin to think of them a little bit too often. Like you're just going about your day and you're thinking of this person. You're thinking about them almost every day or several times a week. Now, if this is someone that you really truly care about and you want to reach out, you want to call, email, text, okay, that's one thing. Visit, that's wonderful. That's good. Let's talk about when this happens and this is someone that you don't necessarily want to have contact with. What do you do? And you know it's someone that you've tried to help them maybe, and you can't help them. They don't seem to be getting over their stuff. What happens when you find yourself recurringly thinking of somebody and you kind of feel their energy and you don't want to? This is when I encourage you to do things like prayer, I will do things where I will send love. I literally will go into a quick moment of prayer and send love and light to that person. I will pray for that person. I will ask the angels to surround that person with love and with light. And then I will ask my own guides, my own angels to please create like an energetic separation. Not that I'm not still, caring or wishing well for that person, but I don't want that person's energy to begin to influence me so much, even if I'm not physically with them, that it's interfering with my well-being, okay? So that's a time when we want to use our clairsentience and we want to manage it in a way that we still stay grounded and centered in ourselves, where we don't go kind of putting our energy into that person's situation to the point where we're either distracted or we're feeling off balance, because sometimes you may notice that you feel fine and then all of a sudden you're feeling down, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling sad, irritable, drained. We can, at a distance, begin to pick up on somebody else's energy. So that's why the more that you're aware of how you feel and then aware of your thoughts, oh, wow, I keep thinking of this person and now my energy's getting off. So that's when you want to really make sure that you can get yourself back into your own energy, your own vibration, and create a little bit of separation. It's not that you don't care. It's just you're giving them their space and time, and you're allowing yourself to keep your energy, your frequency in a place where you can still feel good and balanced. Okay? Manifesting. So Donna's bringing up manifesting. How does manifesting work? Manifesting works with our clairsentience. Manifesting works with our own energy. So law of attraction, right, is about thinking and feeling and visualizing, but really what is it about? It's about feeling. It's about our energy and our vibration. So the most important thing I want to say about trusting your inner guidance is making sure that your energy is in a place of self-love and self-trust. When you're in a place of positivity and self-belief, your energy is matching the energy of spirit. And that's where our higher guidance comes from. Our higher guidance comes from our own soul, our higher self. It can come through our loved ones in spirit. It can come through God, the divine spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call that higher awareness that we all are connected to. But again, the higher guidance, the divine spirit, is inside of us. And when we stop doing things like we think someone knows better than us, or that person must know better than me, or that person's better than me, I don't know who I am, why am I doing this, I'm going to be a fool, who am I to think I can do this? Those are those thoughts that bring our energy down. And when it brings our energy down, that's when the guidance can get muddled. We can get confused, and when our mind is going in a million different directions. The more that we can take those calm moments, like right now, I'm going to pause again. In that calmness, just going within yourself, you'll naturally feel a moment of peace. And in those moments of peace, that's where we can hear the frequency of spirit. I like to think it's like the radio station or radio channel. It's always there. We just have to learn to tune into it. And we tune into it through going within, getting quiet, trusting. Again, when we take small steps, we build the confidence, we build the belief. When we ask for guidance, we are given it. And it may come in ways that we don't expect it. But that's where understanding the 4 clairs I talked about will help. Maybe your guides are getting your attention through looking at a magazine and an article you've just read. Maybe your guides are getting your attention through a movie that you've just watched and you feel really inspired by that movie. Maybe your clairsentience and your guidance is coming through your feelings, and you might need a good cry. You might need someone's shoulder to lean on. You may need to get your feelings out in a journal. That's your guidance too. Maybe your guidance is telling you, I really need to talk to somebody that I trust. I need to get it out of my own head and I need to talk to somebody. That's your guidance. Your guidance could be something very simple, like just take a few moments at the end of your day and get quiet and get peaceful and light a candle or listen to music or write in your journal. And it seems like it's not that significant, but the more we do that, the more we hear that guidance, and the more that we can begin to know that we're being guided and supported. And it's those little steps. That's how spirit gets our attention. It doesn't seem like it's this burning bush, but it's really, that's how the spirit gets our attention, is to take those quiet moments and to really believe in yourself and to believe in ourselves. It happens all the time, whether I'm doing an intuitive reading, whether I'm coaching, whether I'm doing mediumship, it happens all the time. The messages that come through, through me, because I'm really just the vehicle, to give the message to people so that they know, wow, this isn't just me, wishful thinking or just my imagination. This really is guidance coming through me, through spirit. And I want you to really trust that, really trust it. I've told some people this. My husband's great uncle Bill, through marriage, I wasn't close to. I knew him though, and I saw him at family events, but we weren't close, and there was a big age difference. But because I'm a medium, because I'm in a mentoring program, and I have a lot of practice readings with other mediums over the years, my husband's great uncle Bill has come through other mediums to me, I want to say probably at least 30 times now. 30 times. I mean, that's how amazing it is. That's how amazing the guidance is that we have available to us. It's not just, a guardian angel. It's so much bigger than you realize. And the way you're going to sense it is going within and trusting yourself and not doubting so much those thoughts and those feelings that you have. My number one favorite thing about my work is to be able to encourage, support, help validate for people that they have this guidance, that they have this support. And that's the number one thing that I want you to know, and I'm going to keep repeating in anything that I do with you, online, in my writing, whatever, is that first and foremost, your spirit. As spirit, you're energy and vibration. And you're a soul. And by your birthright, you are divinely guided, connected, and supported. And it's going to come through really practical ways. Sometimes we're going to have those amazing moments where, we get the goosebumps, or we get those amazing ahas, but sometimes, a lot of times, it's very simple. And I really believe we're guided every single day. It's just a matter of paying attention to the everyday ways that we're guided. So I'm just checking here if there are any last things. Yeah, Liz, I'm sorry about that with the anxiety. So if your husband's able with the anxiety, not that you need to be his counselor or his therapist, but I've noticed with some of the clients that I've worked, anxiety has really helped. For some people, you know your husband better than I, but anxiety a lot of times is where we're out of balance within our own selves. But there may be traumas, there may be other experiences and other feelings that have happened. You're going to know what's going to best help your husband. But staying centered in yourself, right? Not taking on someone else's anxiety and other difficulty. But when we work on ourselves, when we are in tune with ourselves, other people around us are affected by that. Okay? When we can get connected to our own inner peace. So thank you everybody today that was on this live. Again, I'm going to be doing lives on Tuesdays at 12. There will be sometimes I can come on my page again in the week, and I'm sorry if I can't. There are times where I can't. There are times in the weeks where I volunteer at my kids' school or have other things that I have to do. But I want to keep revisiting this, and I want to eventually, I'd like to actually teach an online class about this topic, about intuition development. It's something again, I've taught in person, but I like to teach online and go more in depth and actually have people practice with each other. But thank you so much for those of you that joined, watched. I will look at the comments. If there's something that I didn't address today, I will type it into the comments. You're always welcome to message me on Facebook. You're always welcome to email me. My email's info@JeanetteHill.com. You're always free to go to my website. If any of you want to get regular newsletter updates from me, I usually only send them about once a month. You're free to sign up for that on my website. Thank you again so much. I wish you all much love and many, many blessings for your day. And thank you so much for joining me on the live today. Trust yourself, trust your guidance. Take care.